Good morning, Pride League. It's kind of early, so I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as possible. I think this is intro video for basically I'm trying to go through the bylaws and try to give a little clarification. If anything, I'm probably just confusing more people, but let me get this out of the way, and if there are any questions anybody has, I'll be more than glad to answer. I think we've already gotten up to like Article 10 where we were talking about contract extensions, so let's go ahead and get in through that and read as much of this as humanly possible. I think we got to the part where an owner can extend any player's contract at the start of Week 17, first week of the offseason, until the start of Week 5 games of the following season, unless that player is in the final year of his contract. So anybody in the final year of his contract, they need to have their contract either extended before August 15th, and anybody else, you can do it up until Week 5. Players may only have their contracts extended once by any given franchise before being allowed to test free agency. So if you got Antonio Brown for 4 years and then you extend him for another 4 years, he won't be able to be extended past that. I mean, I don't think anybody wants a 37-year-old receiver anyway, but, you know, you can only extend him twice. So if you had him for 2 years and then you extended him for 1 year, you have to allow him to test free agency the following year. So if the player hits free agency and then signs with the same team, they are eligible for extension again. So once they hit free agency, all of that stuff resets, and you're able to pick him up and then have the same extension rules apply. Applying franchise tags, transition tags, or signing a new contract at the end of the stage 2 holdout is not considered an extension. So franchise tags, transition tags, or signing a brand new contract at the end of stage 2 holdout is not considered an extension. So when extending a contract, the current salary at the time is increased by 20% and becomes the new salary for the current year. Owners may specify a salary in the extension post greater than a 20% increase, but it must be a minimum of 20% above the current salary. On top of that, the minimum salary for extending any player's contract is $10. So, I mean, say you had this punter that you like, but you only had it for $3, right? And so then you want to extend the punter. The punter becomes, at minimum, $10, despite 20% only being a couple dollars, or whatever. The minimum to extend any player contract is at least $10. To extend a player's contract, the owner must post the extension in the appropriate league message board and then verify that the commissioner makes the correct extension and salary increase. It's just to help you, help me, help us make the league better. Owner must provide the commissioner with the player's name and the new contract length. If the owner fails to submit a contract extension by the deadline, the player will remain under the current contract, and so on and so on. All that other stuff will apply. Article 11. Franchise and transition tags. Let's start with the franchise tags. During the offseason, an owner may choose to retain one player on the last year of his contract by applying the franchise tag. Commissioner must be notified by owners of all recipients of the franchise tag by March 1st via the appropriate message board. For players to be eligible for the franchise tag, players must be on the owner's roster during the previous season and their contract must expire on March 1st. To be eligible to bid on a franchise tag player, you must own a current or future first-round selection. Franchise tag players will then be bid on by eligible teams. Owners may only have an active high bid for each eligible first-round pick that you own. F. Bidding will start at the average of last season's top tier of highest paid players at the franchise tag player's position. Top 10 for quarterbacks, tight ends, DTs, place kickers, and punters. Top 15 for running backs, DNs, cornerbacks, and safeties. And the top 20 in wide receivers and linebackers. Bidding will be conducted in appropriate league message board. Owners will have until March 21st to reply and post the salary they are willing to offer franchise tag players. Owners that place the franchise tag must match the winning bid or decline to match the offer by March 28th. Owners declining to match the offer will accept the compensatory pick, one first-round pick, for the franchise tag player. If the team has multiple first-round picks, the latest first-round pick will be used. If the team wins 2 or more franchise tag auctions, the highest bid will be awarded the earliest pick. Message board timestamp is the next tiebreaker for both bids, if both bids were of equal value. The franchise receiving the compensatory first-round pick may choose to defer the upcoming draft pick and opt for the following season's draft pick, if applicable. Multiple first-round pick rules will apply. The franchise receiving the franchise tag player will sign the player to a 3-year contract at the top tier of highest paid players at the franchise tag player's position or the winning bid price, whichever is higher. 20% inflation of the contract shall be applied like normal. A player may not be franchise tagged by the same franchise more than twice unless the player hits free agency first. So, franchise tagging a player basically means that they're in their last year of the contract, and instead of just letting them hit free agency on his own, you are gonna allow a bidding to occur. That bidding, you can either it's basically like seeing what kind of market this guy's in. You're able to match any other owners' offers for this guy as far as bids go. And you can either accept those bids or you can accept picks for, that franchise taking over that player and giving him a brand new contract on a new franchise. So it's just by March 21st, there'll be bids placed on all the franchise tag players. The highest bids will go to that team unless the current team wants to pay that guy that much money, and so be it. But it got to be in the final year of his contract to even have the franchise tag apply. Transition tags. During the offseason, an owner may choose to retain 2 players in the final year of their contract by using the transition tag. Franchise tags you probably don't want to use as much unless, you're just starving for picks. For players to be eligible for the transition tag, player must be on the owner's roster during the previous season, and their contract must expire March 1st, very similar to the franchise tag. When an owner applies the transition tag to a player, the player immediately signs a 1-year deal. Transition tag players will automatically become an unrestricted free agent when his contract expires, no exception. Once the transition tag is applied, the player is ineligible to receive a franchise tag the following season, even should the player be traded to another franchise. He hadn't hit free agency yet. So, owners will pay the average salary of the top tier of the highest paid players of his position from the previous league year, or the player's previous year's salary plus 20%, whichever is higher. So we've got top 20 in quarterback, tight end, DT, place kicker, punter, top 30 in running back, DE, defensive end, cornerback, safety, and the top 40 of all the wide receivers and linebackers. These charts will be what we use to determine these salaries for franchise and transition tag players. They're a little bit different. So transition tags, you're allowed 2 of those, but the guy will definitely hit free agency. He won't get a brand new contract until after the transition. Article 12. Those 2 those two articles are probably the most confusing if you've never done a dynasty slash salary cap league, right? So those two you're gonna have to keep an eye on, and kind of knowing the state of the league, right? Where the salaries are. You know, if we have massive contracts throughout, that transition and franchise tags will be impacted heavily by other players' salaries. So, holdouts. At the end of each fantasy season, any player who accumulates enough fantasy points to be considered top tier at the player's position is subject to being a possible holdout candidate. Position tiers for the end of the year are as follows. This is another, these articles in succession are what people really find to be outside the box, but is the closest thing to actually being Jerry Jones in this piece, right? A top 10 quarterback, tight end, or DT. Say you picked up Baker Mayfield, and Baker Mayfield, you're only paying him like $1 for whatever reason, right? And now he becomes a top 10 quarterback. Well, the top 10 of his position is getting paid X amount of dollars while he's only getting paid $1. You're not gonna be too happy. He might hold out, especially if he's a top 10 quarterback. He will hold out. Same goes with tight ends and DTs. Top 15 at running back, defensive end, cornerback, safety. Top 20 at wide receiver and linebacker. Punters and kickers, they don't apply. Punters and kickers don't hold out. They may be people, but they don't deserve to be paid like people. Anybody signing in contract extensions for punters and kickers, oh my God, I hope they're winning you games. Regardless, if a top tier player is making less than half of the average salary of the highest paid players according to the position tiers listed above, franchise and transition tags, the player is considered a stage 1 holdout player. Let me see. I'm just checking the charts here. Just got to be half, right? So we'll check both the transition and franchise tag charts. They're a little different with the top 20, top 30, top 40, and with the franchise tag, top 10, top 15, top 20. So both of those will be applied when deciding on holdouts. If they don't meet half of either one, then yeah, it's going to be a possible holdout situation. They'd rather be franchise tagged or transition tagged, vice playing under a contract that makes them less money than, being at the top tier of their position. That player would be considered a stage 1 holdout player. A stage 1 holdout player gets 50% of the average of top tier contracts of his position, whichever is higher, right? So Willie Beeman is currently on a $10 contract and finishes in the top 10 of his position in fantasy points. The average of the top 10 highest paid players in his position is $100. Half of that is $50. So his stage 1 holdout salary would become $50. Contract years would not change. So that's what would happen with, say, the Baker Mayfield scenario. If you're paying him like that and then he became a holdout, then he would want at least half of what the average players at that position would get paid. So if a stage 1 player is dropped prior to March 1st, the salary cap penalty will be based on the original contract. So instead of, this $50 contract that would manifest during the holdout, as long as you drop him before that, you won't incur a salary cap penalty of that contract. It would be the original. After March 1st, the stage 1 holdout salary takes effect, and tough tit, right? So players holding out can be traded during the designated trading periods, with the new franchise bearing the same exact responsibilities as the previous franchise. So You could trade him in the offseason and be like, oh, this guy's going to hold out. Anybody want to try to take on this contract? Somebody will be like, shit, yeah, I will. And then you can trade him, and then they would have the same responsibilities, right? Didn't hit free agency. He's just being traded. In accordance with Article 11 of this document, Stage 1 holdout players may sign a contract extension, but the salary must be made to be equal or greater than the average of the highest paid players of his position. So, just because you re-sign him at the 20% or, the minimum $10, if that's not the average after his performance, if that's not it, he's going to be like, nah, man, I think I need a better contract. He will still hold out due to his stats the previous year. If a player reaches the top tier at his position again during the life of the same contract, the Stage 1 holdout player will then be considered a Stage 2 holdout player. To resolve a Stage 2 holdout player, the owner has two options, which must be decided by March 1st. Accept the new contract demands for their holdout and sign the player to a contract that is equal to the average salary of the highest paid players of his position. Not have, equal to. That's what the Stage 2, he wants it to be equal. Or simply waive the player. There will be no salary cap penalty when exercising this option. So once he's a Stage 2, you can waive him, and then there won't be a salary cap penalty. But he would want to be paid equal to the average, whichever's higher. If a Stage 1 holdout player does not reach the top tier of his position during the life of the same contract to achieve Stage 2, the player remains a Stage 1 holdout. Maintaining the agreed holdout salary, the usual 20% annual increase applies until his contract expires. All holdouts, regardless of stage, whereby the owner fails to notify the commissioner of his intentions by March 1st, will be deemed a rejection of that holdout by default. The player will be waived, and the applicable rules will ensue. 10. Rookies are immune from holding out for their first 2 years upon entering the league. So let's look at it like this. We won't have a rookie draft this upcoming season. So all the rookies and the players will be lumped into this one big draft on ESPN. The only time, and you'll be able to do whatever you want with those rookies. You'll be able to sign them 1-year deals, 4-year deals, 2-year deals. They won't have a minimum salary. They'll be part of the auction. So rookies are part of the initial auction draft. This does not apply. They can still hold out because how they were acquired. Rookies you acquire in the rookie draft only, those rookies are immune from holding out for the first 2 years. So if you picked up a rookie quarterback that's, the next Dan Marino or whatever, next Drew Brees, for the first 2 years, no matter where he falls in the rankings, the fantasy top tiers, no matter where he falls, he's not going to hold out for 2 solid years. So a player signed to a 4-year contract has immunity from holding out for 1 contract year. He signed a 4-year deal and you got him for cheap. No matter if he's in the top 10, he will be immune from holding out at least that 1 year. So there are some graces, some leeway when it comes to holding out. Wow, we are still only on Article 13, retirement player death. This is kind of self-explanatory, but let's go over it. When a player retires from the NFL, the owner may drop the player from their roster without penalty. Goes without saying, right? If the player later announces to return to the NFL, that team will regain the rights of that player only for the duration of his original contract. So if he had when he retired, he had a 3-year contract. He will come back with that 3-year contract. Owner must decide within 1 week of the player becoming unretired whether to acquire the player again for the same contract terms as the player had prior to retiring or relinquishing his rights to the player. So that Brett Favre debacle is probably why a lot of this stuff is in the bylaws. And if that guy had Brett Favre on a 1-year deal, he could come back on a 1-year deal, not re-sign him for 3 or 4 years. It has to come back when the player retired, whatever his contract was. So if he comes back and you have to sign up for a 4-year deal, and you're paying him X amount of dollars, you still have to do that or waive him. It is each owner's responsibility to monitor their own retired players and to notify the commissioner if they would like to reinstate any players under this scenario. After week 1, if the player is not reinstated, the unretired player will be considered a free agent and can be acquired by another team via free agency. If a player passes away while under contract, the player will be dropped from the contract without a salary cap penalty. It's the least we could do. Article 14. Let's see. Should we save the rest of this? It's so long. Yeah, we're gonna save it. We're gonna do Article 14, the rookie draft. We're gonna go into the unrestricted free agent auction in the next video. Blind bidding waivers. These are the things that'll probably be occurring the next following season, but trading, that's what we got. And then I'll go through the timeline. We'll do some general conduct stuff in the next video. Hopefully we can finish that all in the next 20 minutes. These are taking forever. I'm sorry, but I don't want to keep you in little snippets. We still need 2 players to acquire franchises so we can get this ball rolling. By March 1st, I kind of want to be up and running with all the teams. I'd like to be paid by at least by the first week of August to have that $450. So save your pennies, gentlemen, and let's make this league really, really fun, really, really great. Yeah, I think that's it for now. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up in the Discord. You can private if you know, whatever, or you can send it out to the general if you think everybody else has the same similar questions. This will be my first time actually being a commissioner of a Dynasty League, so I appreciate your patience, but I look forward to doing this and doing this well, and you know, having a lot of fun with all of you guys. So if you know anybody that needs it, the post is up on Roto World. It's got a lot of hits, but I want to say that price tag is a bit expensive and probably a little misleading. While we might have lost one of the guys, Josh, because you know, once you get past that $450, then it becomes a little smooth sailing with the rewards being appropriate. But we want to keep that longevity, so we got to pay this year and the next year's fees, because I want to keep all of you guys. But in case something happens, I need to be able to advertise a team that is easy to acquire. So with that being said, I appreciate everybody. Thank you guys for joining the league. We need two more dedicated souls. We'll find them, I'm sure, before February. But if you know anybody, this will be the chance to try to get them in and acclimated and see if this is a fit for them. Holla at you boys. Peace.